Hello, and welcome to Auto Be Careful, the place for car safety news and information. I'm Gene, and today we're going to be talking about who sets the speed limits on roads and how they do it. Let's first talk about who sets the speed limits. Interestingly, the federal government does not have any role in setting speed limits, although that hasn't always been the case. In 1974, the National Maximum Speed Limit Law, or NMSL, was signed. This set the speed limit for every road in the country to 55 miles an hour or below. This was in direct response to the 1973 oil crisis. This crisis led to supply shortages and higher prices of oil products, including gasoline. The goal of the law was to reduce the speed of individual users on highways in order to conserve fuel and counteract these supply shortages. Ultimately, the embargo that caused this crisis was walked back in 1974, but the law remained in effect. There was another oil crisis a few years later due to the Iranian Revolution that ended in 1979. The NMSL remained in full effect for another 8 years after this crisis ended. In 1987, the law was amended to allow rural highways to set speed limits as high as 65 miles an hour, although other roads remain restricted to 55 miles an hour. Finally, in 1995, the NMSL was completely repealed, ending federal control of speed limits. That leaves states and local municipalities to set the speed limits. In general, states set speed limit guidance based on road type, and local municipalities will set speed limits within their jurisdiction. For example, a state may indicate that urban streets have a maximum speed limit of 35 miles an hour, while rural highways have a maximum speed limit of 55 miles an hour. A city or county can then set speed limits for urban streets to 35 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour like this one, or even 15 miles an hour based on the individual situation. They can do this as long as they don't exceed the speed limit set by the state. That leads to the question, how do they set these limits? While this can vary from place to place, municipalities will generally rely on road engineers who will study the road and provide a recommendation. What they look at is where things get really interesting. Going back to studies from the 1930s and the 1940s, the general consensus was roads are the safest when the majority of vehicles are traveling roughly about the same speed. This led to the 85% rule. This rule indicates that the speed limit for a road should be set so that 85% of drivers are already traveling at or below the speed limit. For example, if a road engineer studies this road and determines that 85% of drivers are already traveling at or below 40 miles an hour, that would be the recommended speed limit for this road. To simplify things a bit, this number is usually rounded to the nearest 5 or 10. For example, if 85% of drivers are traveling at or below 42 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour would still be the recommended speed limit here. What this means is drivers are entrusted with helping set the speed limit by traveling at a speed that they deem safe for given road conditions. Essentially, if 85% of drivers determine that 40 miles an hour is a safe speed limit for this road, that's what the speed limit gets set to. This consensus essentially allows drivers to vote with their feet to determine a road speed limit, as an old brochure from the Institute of Traffic Engineers once put it. Unsurprisingly, this has led to some problems. The first being that drivers tend to feel comfortable traveling at or above the posted speed limit. This can lead to a feedback loop where the posted speed limit is repeatedly raised because drivers tend to go 5 or 10 miles an hour over it. For example, if the posted speed limit is 25 miles an hour, drivers on this road may travel at 30 miles an hour. Then this road is reevaluated and the posted speed limit turns to 30 miles an hour, which causes drivers to feel comfortable traveling on it at 35 miles an hour. This continues until the posted speed limit is at the threshold set by the state. Additionally, letting drivers set the speed limit for roads means other factors are not taken into consideration, like the surrounding community and other road users. For example, the 85% rule easily excludes input from cyclists and pedestrians. In some cases, this input may be taken into account if there are road markings for a bike lane or pedestrian crossing. These markings may cause some drivers to slow down to ensure everyone's safety, but that's not guaranteed. This is even less likely if these markings don't exist. It also doesn't really include the opinion of these other road users because the ultimate decision is still up to drivers. Other opinions that tend to be excluded from this rule are the surrounding community. For example, a resident on a busy road may have limited options to encourage drivers to slow down and keep their family safe. They might worry that their child would run out onto the road. They could submit a request to their local municipality to have the speed limit on a given road reevaluated. However, this may not lead to the desired result. In some cases, a resident's request to have a speed limit lowered have actually led a road engineer to recommend a higher speed limit based on the 85% rule. Since the 85% rule is based on current driver speeds, a resident's concerns aren't taken into account when making the recommendation. The end result is that the 85% rule may not be the most logical way to set speed limits. This is especially true considering how much roads and vehicles have changed since the 1940s. Consider that airbags weren't even invented until the 1950s, and it was another 50 years before they were federally mandated for vehicles. Additionally, the Federal Highway Administration, or FHA, has recognized that the 85% rule was having too much influence in the decision-making process for speed limits. In fact, they recently updated their manual that provides national guidance on traffic signs to indicate that the 85% rule isn't even a rule at all. So what can be done to fix these issues? Well, the FHA now recommends that road engineers take other factors into account when setting speed limits. These factors include pedestrian safety, how the road is used, and crash risk. Some places are allowing municipalities to set lower speed limits, like a 50% rule, if there's increased risk to pedestrians. Other areas are beginning to allow additional factors into the decision-making process, including if the road is in a more urban location or if there's a certain number of intersections in a quarter-mile stretch of it. Some people argue it isn't the best idea to artificially lower the posted speed limit because drivers will still travel as fast as they feel comfortable going regardless of the posted speed. The argument is, if a road is designed to be traveled on at 25 miles an hour and the posted speed limit is 10 miles an hour, drivers are still going to travel at 25 miles an hour. This may be true for some drivers. However, places like New York City have implemented these changes and noticed a 30% reduction in traffic-related injuries. For roads where drivers continue to feel comfortable traveling at above the speed limit, road engineers can recommend the installation of additional traffic safety devices like speed humps and lane narrowing fixtures to encourage drivers to slow down. So that's a look at who sets speed limits, how they do it, and what's being done to make the system better. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something, and remember to like and subscribe.